Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. Today I decided to bring out some big dogs.
Who let the dogs out?
In either case, today we got a Royal Oak Offshore Tourbillon Chronograph from Audemars Piguet, as well as a Royal Oak Tourbillon from Audemars Piguet. And I have two more tourbillons from Hublot. We have the GMT Zirconium tourbillon, and we have the limited edition Ferrari tourbillon from Hublot to celebrate 20th anniversary of Ferrari in China. Why did I put together APs and Hublot? Well, because a lot of people say that, Hublot and AP sort of more the same. They're sort of the up-to-date hit watches. The only difference between the two is their resale value. And people always ask me about resale value and watches as an investment. And I figured, you know what? Let me put it in perspective with both of these brands. They're actually very, very hot right now. Both Hublot and AP are flying off the shelves. People are buying both brands regardless of what anybody may say about Hublot on Instagram or any other social media. These watches tend to be made fun of. So I'm going to start with the Royal Oak Tourbillon. And all this is a new take on the Royal Oak Chronograph tourbillon from before. Of course, the movement here is different from the previous version. It boasts a pretty hefty and impressive 64-hour power reserve. Other than that, it's put in the new 45mm case from the Offshore. It's quite heavier than its previous version. And I like how they exposed the movement a bit at 1 o'clock. And of course, this is the white version. The white version is because it comes on a white rubber strap with the matching white pushers. Perfect summer watch. Retail, $268,000. What are we selling this watch? Anywhere from $210,000 to $220,000, depending on the dollar, depending on the rate, because this goes off of the Swiss retail. You guys know I'm biased. I happen to love AP. It happens to be my favorite brand. So this is definitely a watch I would wear for the summer. Either this guy or the Concept GMT in white. Next up is its little brother. It's the Royal Oak. And you guys know historically you have the Royal Oak line, within which you have the Royal Oak line, which is the smaller one, and the Royal Oak Offshore line, which is the bigger one. Now before Royal Oaks and Royal Oak Offshores were the difference between 39mm and 42mm. Now it's the difference between 41mm and 45mm. Case in point, here's the 41mm Royal Oak Chrono with the blue dial. Now, right away, you'll notice the difference between the two is that the white one I showed you earlier screams, where this is a lot more subtle. And I apologize for all the plastic. These things are new, so I don't really feel like unwrapping them for half an hour. But you get the idea. Absolutely beautiful watch. This is a watch for someone that, A, does not have a big wrist, because let me show you the difference between these two. I mean, it's a humongous difference. This sucker is huge, and look at the width. The width is what also makes the watch much bigger. You can have the same exact watch with the same exact diameter dial, but if the one watch is thicker, it'll look a lot bigger on your wrist. This watch is a little more subtle. From afar, it sort of looks plain Jane, and most people won't even know it's a tourbillon unless they look closely up. It's for those that know, so to speak. Of course, I can't really call this watch subtle. Probably the stainless steel version of this watch would be a lot more subtle because this is still a big hunk of gold. But nevertheless, for someone that has a smaller wrist that can't wear a behemoth like this watch is actually lighter with a bracelet than this guy on a rubber strap. For somebody who wants to wear more of a plain sort of understated tourbillon, this is the perfect watch. And I love understated pieces such as this because I know it's a tourbillon. Everybody else doesn't need to know that it's a tourbillon, and everybody else doesn't need to know that this retails for $168,000. What's the resale value on this thing? What is the current going rate? The current going rate is $110,000 to $120,000, I guess, depending on current euro and Swiss franc rates. Very popular watch. Every time I get these in, I can't keep them on the shelf long enough. They fly off the shelf quickly. Next, I'm going to move on to the Hublot tourbillons. First off, I'm going to show you the Hublot Zirconium GMT. Now, zirconium is a metal somewhere between titanium and stainless steel. I'm not a chemist by all means, so I don't know what the chemical compound of this material is. All I know is it's just as light as titanium and very, very durable. Now this is a pretty big watch. It's 48mm, but the fact that it's zirconium makes it super duper light. It features a GMT at 1 o'clock, kind of a take on the Rolex Pepsi, I think, with the blue and red. I like the way they offset the tourbillon between 5 and 6 o'clock. Normally you're used to seeing the tourbillon either at 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock. I kind of like the fact that it's offset to the side. Semi-skeletonized dial, you got your retrograde date display on the left. Overall, a beautiful watch aesthetically. It is a manual wind. Surprise, not a limited edition Hublot. It's a limited edition of 28 pieces. And this was made for the Geneva market or the Geneva boutique. It's basically the Geneva edition is what it's called. I'm not sure if that's because of the fact that it was only sold in a Geneva boutique, but nevertheless, Geneva edition, 28 pieces. Retail, $195,000. What are we selling this watch for? You can pick this guy up as low as $75,000, give or take a third of its price. Now let me compare. Notice I have one big Hublot and one big AP and smaller Hublots and AP tourbillons. So I'm just going to put the two side by side to show you sort of a comparison shot. And you can see that the Hublot is slightly bigger than the AP. Last but not least, guess what? Another limited edition from Hublot. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a Ferrari Hublot. We all know Ferrari has a relationship with Hublot. This was made for the 20th anniversary of Ferrari in China. Eventually, Hublot runs out of things to make limited editions for, but nevertheless, it's an event, I guess. Made from almost entirely carbon fiber. The entire top of the watch, the lugs, and the bezel is made out of carbon fiber. It's a very, very cool look, a very Ferrari look. I like this look. Now, what makes this watch complicated? It's a flying tourbillon, and it's also a monopusher chronograph. I've told you guys before, notice there's only one button here instead of traditional two. So if I depress this button, the chronograph goes off. Press it again, it stops. Press it again, it resets. Again, it's much more complicated than a regular chronograph. So, you know, I guess put that in there and you can beef up the retail price. Limited edition of 20 pieces, surprise, 20th anniversary, Ferrari in China. Again, love the carbon fiber look, love the matching strap. If you're a Ferrari owner, this watch screams Ferrari. This is definitely a watch to match to your car. And the retail price is almost as much as a Ferrari, $258,000. You can pick this watch up for under $100,000. Again, about a third of its price. Pretty ridiculous. So it brings me back to the question, so why is it that these APs, you're barely getting, 20% off retail, and these guys you're buying at a third of a price? The answer couldn't possibly be supply and demand, right? Well, technically there is an answer in that old cliche. It is about supply and demand. And here's the thing, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that Hublots are selling just as hot as AP. And the only difference is that Hublot makes more watches than AP. The demand is there. The demand for both Hublot watches and AP watches is probably about the same because Hublot watches are flying off the shelves just the same. But Hublot makes many, many more watches. They produce many, many more limited editions. Their overall production is humongous. In fact, they just built a second factory identical to the one that they had right next door to the other 5-story building that they had where their manufacturing facility is. So yes, the answer does lie in the old cliche of supply and demand. Only issue is that Hublot puts out a lot more supply than Audemars Piguet. But nevertheless, both are just as popular. And I will stock Hublot all day long. I buy Hublots all day long. I keep a bunch of them in stock because they sell. At the end of the day, they make gorgeous looking watches, just like Audemars Piguet. Last but not least, what's on my wrist? It's the Audemars Piguet Offshore Survivor, an oldie but a goodie. This is actually one of the few limited editions from way back when that actually still sells over list. Current market on Survivor is anywhere from $33,000 to $36,000 depending on condition and how complete the watch is. Guys, I want to thank you once again for joining me today. If you like this episode, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to my channels, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time for more videos and watch reviews.